What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and today we're going to be talking about rFactor 1, which is now available on the Steam digital distribution platform, and there's a couple things I'd like to talk about, so let us begin. So let's start this video off with two questions. First of all, why put rFactor 1 on Steam, ISI? And the answer is they're evaluating the Steam digital distribution platform for themselves to see what it offers them and how well things turn out and such, as well as how difficult it would be to get the game onto the platform, which this was basically, as I gather, done by one guy, just putting the game on Steam himself, basically. Wasn't something that held up rFactor 2 development or anything like that, as repeated multiple times from ISI themselves, which is good. And then the second question is, this game is ancient, why should I care? To which the answer is, well, first of all, the game is ancient, so if you have a crappy computer, you can probably still run rFactor 1 because it's ancient, as well as the fact that, well, it's not that bad when fed the right mods, which is what rFactor 1 exists almost entirely for, as well as the fact that, well, it is ancient and it is built for modding, which means that there's mods for pretty much anything and everything you can think of. Anything from a Citroen 2CV all the way up to a V10 era F1 car, you can probably find a mod for it. That's pretty awesome. Yes, there are other titles out there, there are more modern titles out there like rFactor 2 or Assetto Corsa, which aim to have the same type of moddability and expanded third-party content, I guess you could say, but rFactor 1 has that in the here and the now because this game has been around for a long while, which means that you don't have to wait for potential years for that mod with the one type of car that you're really wanting to drive to come out. Wrapping this section of the video up though, I know there's going to be a lot of questions from the newer sim racers on this channel, and they're going to be thinking this final question. In a world where Assetto Corsa, GameStop Car Extreme, iRacing, Project Cars, rFactor 2 exist, when we went alphabetical there, is rFactor 1 still worth it? And my answer is yes, because the mods are what make rFactor 1 rFactor 1. Yes, Assetto Corsa looks set to be more of a true successor to rFactor 1 than rFactor 2, but at the same time, it's not going to be until several years down the road that Assetto Corsa offers the same spread of content done in a fantastic quality as what rFactor 1 does currently. You know, you might be concerned about, oh, well, this game's ancient, so it's going to drive like crap, it looks like crap. Well, I commonly hear, and I hate hearing this, mind you, but I do commonly hear, GameStop Car Extreme is just an rFactor 1 mod, because they share the same engine. GameStop Car Extreme is my most recommended sim out there, because, well, it's rFactor 1 with a fantastic mod in every respect, out of the box, with no hassle. But that's what you can get with rFactor 1. You can get that quality of experience from rFactor 1, providing you're a little bit willing to work for it, because yes, modding is required with rFactor 1. Yeah, there's content that they give you out of the box that you can play with, but if you're playing with the default content in rFactor 1, you're doing it wrong, you're playing the wrong game, it's not for you. You have to mod this game if you actually want to play it and get the most out of it. If you're looking to mod your game, yes, you should look at rFactor 1 because there's a massive backlog out there. If you're not interested in modding rFactor 1, just close this video and walk away because it's definitely the wrong game for you. Okay? So there you go. It's still capable here in 2015, even if it is basically a decade old. Not sure what that says, but it says something. So, let's move on. Moving on to the Steam version of the game, and specifically the changes from the, well, retail version of the game, we'll call it for the lack of a better term, otherwise known as the version that you'd get straight from ISI. First of all, I need to mention that rFactor 1 Steam version and non-Steam versions are compatible with one another, which means that a Steam user can race with non-Steam users and vice versa. You can also mod the Steam version of the game, so there's no issues with that. Starting off, there's the 4GB memory awareness patch, which basically enables rFactor 1 to use more of your computer's RAM to hopefully make everything run smoother and faster and better. However, I will say that a very similar patch has been available within the rFactor 1 community for quite some time now, which means that if you do run a modded version of rFactor 1 already, you're probably not going to see any difference. So, yeah, but it's nice that that has been included by default with the Steam version, especially for the newer users who probably won't know that such a patch already exists. There are two more notable changes. You can now change your field of view in-car with keys that you combined, which you couldn't do in rFactor 1. I actually never even noticed you couldn't do that in rFactor 1. It's not really that important, honestly. It's nice that you can do that. It should have been that way from the start, I guess, but I didn't complain over the last decade, so I can't say it's a big deal. But what is a big deal, and something that is quite important, and in fact is probably the reason you're going to want the Steam version of the game over the regular version, is that, well, you can have 6 controllers now, all at one time, feeding rFactor 1 inputs and things. And you're probably saying, why would you ever need that many controllers? That seems totally ridiculous. Well, steering wheel, pedals, shifter, button box, that's 4 right there, which with the regular version of rFactor 1, you could only use 3 of them. Now you can use 6 of them. And that's the main reason that you're probably going to want rFactor 1 Steam version, because that is a pretty big deal for those people who need more than 3 controllers. So if that's what you needed out of rFactor 1, that's the big ticket item within this version of the game. I haven't heard if there's a definitive timeline for these changes coming to the regular version of rFactor 1. It still seems like something that may or may not happen. That's what I've heard from ISI staff. I'm hopeful that eventually the regular version will get 6 controller support, because it is something that is a nice plus. But, well, yeah. And I say, well, yeah, because here's the kicker. If you purchase rFactor 1 from ISI themselves, they've self-published rFactor 1 since the very beginning, you will also have the option to create a Steam key from your activation code, which means that you can have non-Steam versions of the game as well as Steam versions of the game running alongside. Now, it is important to note that if you buy just the Steam version, you won't have the ability to turn your game into a non-Steam version of the game, which basically means buy it from ISI themselves, you get the regular version, and you get the Steam version at the same time. It's a win-win-win. And you know, you might be thinking at this point, well, the Steam version is newer, it's got those upgrades that you just talked about, so why would I want the non-Steam version of the game? You want the non-Steam version of the game because modding is easier without Steam. It's very easy to have multiple installs of rFactor 1, which when you start modding, you're going to have a lot of different installs, or you should have a lot of different installs of the game. For example, I currently have 9 different installs of rFactor 1 currently. Yeah, that's a lot. All those running individual mods and things like that, which it's easy. I just click on an icon and I fire up whatever car tracks I choose to drive. I have everything all set up like that. Incredibly easy to take care of. You can sort of mimic that through Steam. I'll put a description or link down in the description for you guys to check out how you would go about doing that. But personally, I see it being a whole lot easier without messing around with Steam for modding. And really the reason that you would want to have all those separate installs is because when you do start to add in a lot of content, it does slow the game down in terms of its loading time. And quite frankly, I think there's a better way to spend your disk space on a solid state drive than rFactor 1, which really, you know, you're looking at 10-15 seconds to start up off a regular hard drive versus, you know, a minute and a half once you do throw billions of mods into rFactor 1. So it's just one of those things where personally I think that's a big feature to have, and it's why I've not really done too much with the Steam version of the game. But I will say again, if you buy the non-Steam version of the game, you get a ticket to create a Steam version of the game and keep your current non-Steam version of the game. So you got the best of both worlds, and there you go. So wrapping this video up, Well, I'll put it this way. rFactor 1 may be a decade old, but it can still run fantastically. It can still put on a heck of a show. And there's a reason why I still have rFactor 1 installed, and there's a reason why I still have so many rFactor 1 installs, because it deserves to be installed still. So, that's that. Again, buy the game not through Steam, because then you're just locked into the Steam version. If you don't buy it through Steam, you're not locked into the Steam version, but you get the Steam version anyways, which is a win-win-win-win-win-win-win, which is a whole lot of wins. So hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.